the sun rises slowly over the plains of Sindh. Its golden light brushes across the cracked bricks of Mohenjo-Daro, stones stacked by hands that lived more than 4,000 years ago. The air is still, almost sacred, as if the ruins themselves are holding their breath. Once, this was not silence. These streets rang with footsteps, markets buzzed with trade, and voices echoed through narrow lanes built in perfect order. Water once flowed through carved drains, children played in courtyards, and merchants weighed beads, cotton, and grain on stone scales. This was no ordinary settlement. It was a metropolis, planned, structured, alive. And yet, today, all that remains is dust. Walls crumble, wells lie dry, and the famous Great Bath reflects nothing but sky. The heartbeat of a civilization that thrived for centuries has been silenced, leaving behind a riddle carved into stone. How could a society so advanced vanish without leaving behind its kings, its wars, its epics? Where are the names of its rulers? Where are the tales of its triumphs? The Indus Valley Civilization stands as one of history's greatest enigmas. Older than Rome, older than Greece, it rivaled Egypt and Mesopotamia in brilliance, yet its people slipped into obscurity, leaving behind no Rosetta Stone to tell their story. What we find in these ruins are not just bricks and artifacts. They are whispers of an untold past. This is the story of a civilization that dared to dream of cities long before the world was ready. A story of life, faith, mystery, and a silence that still demands answers. Walk through the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, and the first thing you notice is not chaos, but order. Streets stretch in straight lines, crossing one another like a giant chessboard. Each block is carved with precision, each home carefully placed, as though an unseen architect had drawn a master plan thousands of years before skyscrapers ever touched the sky. This was no accident. This was vision. Across the Indus Valley, from Mohenjo-Daro in Sindh to Harappa in Punjab and Dholavira in Gujarat, an astonishing pattern repeats itself. Cities planned with a clarity and sophistication centuries ahead of their time. Every street aligned with the winds, ensuring ventilation. Houses built with standardized baked bricks, uniform in size, as if guided by a single code of construction. Wells dotted almost every courtyard, granting families direct access to water. No other civilization of that age gave such dignity to everyday life. But the marvels did not end there. Beneath the very feet of its citizens ran an elaborate drainage system. Covered sewers lined with brick carried waste away from homes, out of sight and smell. Bathing platforms, private latrines, and carefully graded slopes ensured cleanliness, at a scale the world would not see again for millennia. Rome, with all its grandeur, would arrive 2,000 years later. And still, the Indus had already mastered the science of sanitation. And then, there is the jewel of Mohenjo-Daro, the Great Bath, a vast, sunken tank lined with bricks, sealed with bitumen, and equipped with steps descending into its depths. Was it a place of ritual cleansing? A center for civic gathering? Perhaps even the world's first public water structure? Its purpose remains cloaked in mystery, but its design whispers of a people who placed water, purity, community, perhaps even faith, at the heart of their society. What strikes us today is not only the genius of engineering, but the humanity of it. These were cities built not just to survive, but to thrive. Cities that valued order, hygiene, and community. Cities where the ordinary citizen was given the gift of comfort and dignity. And as we trace the bricks, the wells, the drains, one truth emerges, undeniable and haunting. These were not primitive villages. They were blueprints for cities yet to come. Beyond the stone walls and master-planned streets, the Indus Valley was alive with the rhythm of daily life. At sunrise, farmers stepped into fertile fields nourished by the great river. Wheat, barley, peas, and sesame swayed under the South Asian sun, their harvests sustaining cities that stretched for miles. Alongside the fields grazed sturdy, humped cattle, the zebu, symbols of strength, wealth, and survival. But this was no isolated world. The Indus people were not only farmers, they were merchants. Caravans set out across dusty roads, their carts drawn by oxen, carrying goods that would travel astonishing distances. Down the river, traders loaded boats with cotton cloth, the earliest known use of cotton in human history, along with beads, pottery, and precious stones. Across mountains and deserts, their goods found their way to Mesopotamia, over 1,000 miles away, binding two ancient civilizations in a silent dialogue of commerce. Step into their marketplaces, and the air hums with color and movement. Stalls brimmed with glazed beads of lapis lazuli, terracotta figurines, and hand-painted pottery. Artisans shaped copper tools and ornaments with skillful hands, while weavers worked the loom to create fabrics that were both practical and refined. These were not luxuries for the few, but testaments to a society where craftsmanship was a shared pride. And in the midst of this bustle lay something even more remarkable: the seals. Small, square pieces of steatite stone, carved with astonishing precision. Animals, bulls, elephants, tigers, unicorn-like creatures, etched alongside mysterious symbols. Perhaps these were signatures of merchants, the world's earliest form of branding, pressed into clay to mark ownership or authenticity. Each seal whispers of identity, of meaning, but their language remains a riddle. For all the brilliance of the Indus, their voice is silent. Their script, etched on seals, pots, tablets, has never been deciphered. Scholars argue whether it represents a true language or a symbolic code. Without it, we cannot hear their prayers, their laws, their poetry. We know the hands that built, the craft that shaped, the trade that flourished. But their thoughts, their stories, their words remain locked in stone, just beyond our reach. And so, as we sift through the remnants of their lives, one truth lingers. We know their hands, their craft, their trade, but not their words. In Egypt, the pharaohs raised pyramids that touched the heavens. In Mesopotamia, kings built towering ziggurats to honor their gods. But in the Indus Valley, there were no palaces, no temples, no monuments to gods carved into the sky. At first glance, it feels like a silence, an absence of belief. But look closer, and another story begins to emerge. Scattered among the ruins, archaeologists have uncovered small terracotta figurines of women, broad-hipped, fertile, adorned with ornaments. These were not queens, but symbols of life itself. The mother goddess, a divine embodiment of fertility, birth, and renewal. For the Indus people, spirituality may not have been about towering structures, but about the cycles of the earth, the power of creation, the miracle of continuity. Then there are the seals, tiny masterpieces of carving. Among them lies one of the most debated artifacts in South Asian history, the Pashupati seal. A horned figure sits cross-legged, surrounded by animals. His posture, his symbolism, strike a haunting resemblance to Shiva, the lord of beasts, the yogi god of Hindu tradition. Could this be the earliest vision of a faith that still lives, thousands of years later? Unlike other civilizations, the Indus people did not separate the sacred from the ordinary. Their homes, their baths, their wells, these may have been the places of ritual. Their gods, if gods they had, were not confined to temples of stone. They may have walked in the fields, in the waters, in the animals that roamed their streets. And perhaps this is their most profound legacy, a civilization whose faith was not shouted from towers, but whispered through daily life. No pyramids, no ziggurats, just quiet symbols of life, fertility, and balance. As if to say, the divine is not above us, it is among us. Civilizations often fall in fire, The Romans faced barbarian swords, the Mayans, famine and conquest. But the Indus Valley? Its end was different. Not thunder, not blood, but silence. For centuries, their cities thrived. Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, Dholavira, living engines of trade, faith, and innovation. And then, around 1900 BCE, the rhythm began to falter. One theory points to climate change. The once mighty Saraswati River, celebrated in ancient hymns, began to dry. Its lifeblood trickled into dust. Without water, fields withered. Wells sank lower. Drought crept into the heart of their civilization. Others speak of floods. Mohenjo-Daro's ruins still show signs of layers of silt, as if the Indus itself, swollen and merciless, had swallowed the city more than once. Imagine the despair. Years of building, washed away in a single season. Some scholars point to disease. Skeletons found in the ruins hint at plague-like outbreaks. Perhaps trade, once their strength, carried not just beads and cotton, but sickness across their vast network. And yet, in all this, there is no evidence of great war. No burned palaces, no mass graves of battle, no fortresses breached. Their walls did not fall to invaders. Their civilization did not collapse under the clash of armies. Instead, they migrated. Slowly, silently, communities left behind their stone cities and drifted eastward into the fertile plains of the Ganges Valley. From the ashes of Harappa, new cultures began to stir, carrying fragments of Indus traditions, reshaping them into something new. What is most haunting is not what we find, but what we do not. No final act, no single catastrophe, only the slow fading of one of humanity's brightest lights. Perhaps that is the lesson of the Indus Valley, that greatness does not always fall with a clash. Sometimes it fades with a whisper. Civilizations vanish, but echoes endure. The Indus Valley may have faded into silence 4,000 years ago, but its legacy still breathes in the heart of South Asia. Their symbols and motifs, from the enigmatic seals to the mother goddess figurines, still whisper in cultural memory. Their crafts, pottery, beads, textiles, foreshadow the artistry that continues in villages and bazaars today. Their urban genius, grids, drainage, public spaces, laid the foundations for how we imagine cities, order, and life in community. Consider this. The Indus thrived for 7 centuries. That is longer than the glory of Rome, longer than many of the empires that shaped our modern maps. For generation after generation, they lived, loved, built, and believed in ways we are only beginning to understand. And yet, their voices remain locked. Their script, etched into stone and clay, still refuses to yield its meaning. What prayers did they chant? What names did they give their gods? What stories did they tell their children by the firelight? We may never know. But perhaps. The silence itself is the message, that human achievement is fragile, that even the greatest civilizations can fade, not with war, not with conquest, but with time itself. Still their stones stand, their streets remain, their questions endure. The Indus Valley reminds us of this truth. History is not finished. It waits beneath the soil, beneath the dust, waiting to be uncovered. Their stones may crumble, but their questions remain eternal. And so must our search. For hidden in the earth are not just ruins, but reflections of ourselves. The camera drifts slowly over the silent stones of Mohenjo-Daro, their edges softened by time, their voices swallowed by earth. And then, seamlessly, the image dissolves into the glowing skylines of Karachi, Delhi, and other modern cities that now stand where ancient empires once thrived. It is a reminder written across the ages. Civilizations rise, civilizations fall, but none vanish without leaving their imprint on those who follow. The Indus Valley may have slipped into silence, but its spirit lingers. in the way we build, in the way we trade, in the way we imagine community itself. Every ruin holds a story. Every unanswered question is an invitation. The Indus teaches us not only about the past, but about ourselves. Stay curious. Keep searching. For history hides many more secrets yet to be uncovered. And if you want to walk further into these hidden stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us on the journey.